event. Today marks the culmination of many months of hard work by 8 individuals who are part of our second cohort of the CEATS program. The CEATS program has been made possible in a large part by the tremendous support of the Secretary of State, Connie Lawson, who has also provided scholarships to many of the CEATS participants who are graduating today. At this point, I'm pleased to introduce the Deputy Secretary of State and Chief of Staff, Mr. Brandon Clifton. Brandon?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Can I get a nodding of heads if you can hear me okay? Great, thank you. Secretary Lawson sends her regrets this morning. She's actually conducting interviews for her successor. So she'll be in a marathon session today to identify the person that, or the persons, likely maybe 2 people that should be advanced to the governor for consideration as she is planning to resign here in about a week and a half. She's doing well, she's healthy, she's happy, and is just tired. You know, just 2020 took a lot out of all of us, and she's ready to focus a little bit more on what matters most to all of us, which is family, especially her grandchildren. So Secretary Lawson sends her thanks, she sends her congratulations, and she sends her acknowledgments that and recognition that in light of all the work that you've done over this past year. So a couple of the points that I want to make, and I'm kind of just running off my notes here. You know, I think recognizing your work in this dynamic year of unprecedented circumstances and staying committed to the project, staying committed to your work and your studies in light of instability and in this unfamiliar time should be acknowledged and recognized and appreciated. Second, you know, this program attempts to raise the bar, if you will, of knowledge, of experience in our local election community, the most important election community in this country. And we're unfamiliar with any other program like this in the country. And I think that we're starting to see the ripple effects that you and your colleagues before you have invested. You know, you're not only obtaining the knowledge yourself, you're having an impact on your colleagues, on your counties, in light of what you've learned through this program. When we look to see further ripples and greater waves in the future as more and more local election officials participate in this program. Next, I want to say, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing your presentations today. We at the Secretary's office are not arrogant enough to think that we have all the answers, and you and together we have more answers and better answers on how to administer elections in this state. So I'm looking forward to learning from you and hearing from you and relaying your lessons to Secretary Lawson, and also incorporating some of your ideas, some of your research into the transition package, the succession package for the to be named secretary. We're looking for new ideas, new opportunities, and I hope to be informed as to what some of that could look like this morning. And finally, I want to say that, you know, I recommend that you find ways. You know, being a former college athlete, you know, you can practice and you can play games, but can you take what you've practiced and apply it to real life game situations? So just recognize or ask you to find opportunities, identify opportunities to make an impact on local election administration in your county based on what you've learned through this program. So I want to thank Ball State. I want to thank Jay and Brian and the team, VSTOP, just an incredible component of this office. And we're very blessed to have the support of the team, which makes us a better Secretary of State's office. So I thank the community, I thank the participants, and I thank VSTOP. So I look forward to discussion today. Back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Clifton. I would now like to welcome Senator Walker to offer some words of wisdom for our graduates.
Okay, here we are. Sorry about that. I'm in my son's house. My internet went down last night. So I'm using his it's three-quarter empty house. He just bought it 3 weeks ago. And so all the echo is the fact there's absolutely no furniture in here except for the chair I'm sitting in. But good morning and welcome to the graduation exercises. There's a lot of things I'd like to say to you, but I was thinking this morning about winners and losers. Elections are all about winners and losers, right? We're accustomed to that. Someone gets news, they're elated, they're deflated, they're excited, or they're disappointed. All that hard work. And it's all on the front page of our local paper. You all win when your pictures are not on the front page of the paper following an election cycle. You win when people don't pay attention to all the work that you put into managing a successful election cycle. There is a tug of war that goes on as I think about winners and losers. We are seeing states across the nation entertain a lot of legislation in reaction to the 2020 election. We are seeing at the federal level significant legislation being proposed, and I guess just now passed one chamber last night. There's a tug of war for control over the election process. I am always impressed and amazed at the same time at the level of professionalism, the level of cooperation, and the spirit of integrity that I see in all of the county level election officials I've had the privilege to work for in my duties in the State House. And I want to go around and give you all a virtual hug for all that you have endured, for the misinformation that has spread over the course of the last several months and even years regarding election integrity, and the spirit of getting it done right that I have witnessed in every instance, just wanting to get it right, just wanting to be serving the voters, providing assurance that the work that you do is sound and true and correct and validated. And it has really bothered me personally to know the many of you that I've had the privilege to get to know, and then to see the way that the national climate has treated you in regards to the work that you do. And so if you can feel encouraged by these words, I hope you take that it means so much to me personally to know of the quality of work that you all do. And it goes beyond just the security of our democracy, as far as I'm concerned, because it's also a testament to government's not all bad. Government's not out to get you, and government's not cheating you. And you can all set that tone for others in your county. I feel like you need a PR person to go out and tell your story. And I think that this program and the work that VSTOP does, and Jay and Brian and all the investment that has been made in you is telling that story. But you need better PR. You need to get this out to the public. And I'm going to help try to do that, to say, look, elections are secure and sound. And they're fair. And they're accurate. And they're right. And it's the right thing to do. So I want you to feel that for all that you think you're not being appreciated, at least I appreciate you. And maybe there are others in the state that appreciate you too. Because your impact on my outlook on the role of government has been shaped by the work that you all do. And I thank you for that. I am going to go get my first COVID shot this morning in about another 45 minutes. I won't be able to stick around for the presentation. Sherry, you'll have to tell me later your project, Bartholomew County, because I won't be able to stick around. But again, thank you for your investing in this and what you do, and your investment in the state of Indiana. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Senator Walker, and good luck with your vaccination today. And thank you so much for joining us and for your insightful and kind words. Thank you, Brandon, as well, for sharing your thoughts with us and your unending support for not only VSTOP, but the CEATS program. Much of this morning is going to be devoted to hearing presentations from our CEATS participants in Cohort 2 regarding their capstone projects. The participants first were required to propose their projects for approval. All of the projects have practical applications for their offices in the areas covered by the CEATS program. These projects represent a significant amount of work and time commitment, and we're very pleased with how the projects turned out. We will begin this morning with our first presenter, who is Reagan Brooke Higdon, and she is the first deputy clerk from Johnson County. And she will present her final project, which is called How Social Media Can Help Your Office and Voters. Reagan, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So I wanted to come at this project with something that would help instill some more faith in our processes for our voter registration office and elections, for the public to be more aware of what was going on behind the scenes, because the more knowledge you have about how something works, the less you are thinking that something bad is going wrong with it. So we'll go ahead and get started on my PowerPoint there. So how social media can help your office and voters. We'll go to the next page. So the problem, as I was just saying, it's a loss of faith in the voting process, and counties could be more transparent with their registered voters in the community as to what is transpiring in their office. So I wanted to take a deeper look into that. And so I started a Facebook page, an Instagram page, and a Twitter page to keep everybody up to date with that. But keeping the lines of communication open is just going to help reinforce some faith in our voting process. The next page. So the goal for this project included, but was not limited to, showing examples of how reaching out to registered voters and the public in general on different social media platforms can help educate them in regards to elections, voting locations, facts about voting, informing them of ways they can get involved. I also threw in some funny satire comics every once in a while for some people, but I always kept it bipartisan, so that way nobody felt like they could not be included in it, and there was no ill will anywhere. So as I was saying before, I used 3 different social media sites to start my project off. Facebook, we had already established a Facebook page. It just wasn't well maintained, didn't keep up to date that often, just basically posted when something of bigger importance was happening. So I worked at revamping that one and reaching out more on it. Instagram was the second social media account I started, and it was harder to gain followers, but overall it ended up proving to be beneficial also. Twitter was the last site that I did, and I don't have Twitter myself, so it was a total learning curve for me to pick it up and follow it. It was my most difficult platform for me to use. I know that once you gain followers on there, it would work fantastic, but I had trouble gaining followers. I even promoted it on the other social media sites, but it was not the one for me. Facebook and Instagram definitely were better. So my weekly action plan was I would make a post, one to two posts each week on each platform and see how well they would perform. And a lot of times I would recycle the post that I used on Facebook. I would use the same one on Instagram because not everybody has those same 2 ones. So it wasn't, it was beneficial to go ahead and share it again that way. A nice thing about Facebook, it has a wonderful stats section if you have a page, and you can see how many people have viewed your page, how many people have viewed a post, how many times they've shared it, how many people it reached, which, I mean, so somebody else shares it and then their followers, 300 people see it there. The biggest one I had, it reached over 9,000 people. And to me, that was just like amazing because we only have 330 followers on the Facebook page. So for it to say that it reached over 9,000 people was really big. And that's exactly what I was wanting to do with this project, was get the word out to people of how they can be involved, informative information, so they didn't feel like they were taken care of, basically. So it was great. Instagram, it was a little harder getting followers, not as hard as Twitter, but it was harder. I finally figured out that if I follow other businesses in the community and their pages and like their stuff, then people would see my name in the likes, and that would help. I do feel it was really beneficial though, but Twitter ended up only having 3 followers. I even shared Secretary Lawson's Twitter post here and there, would retweet them. I was hopeful that I'd be able to pull some other people in, but it was a difficult platform for me. As far as collecting data though, if you're wanting to collect data on how far like some stuff has went, Facebook is definitely the best one to see how many people you've reached. So the methods I took to ensure transparency to the public and our registered voters was by keeping them informed of upcoming voter registration deadlines, vote center locations with their hours and times, absentee deadlines, links to forms that they may have needed, and links to important state websites. Once again, I did often share like the Secretary of State posts. So Brandon, those were really great in helping us with our stuff because that just gave people the information right away. The weekly posts helped to keep them engaged and informed of everything that was going on around them. Overall, the project had really positive results. I started it right as COVID-19 was taking off, and it was really beneficial to be able to reach the public in that way. We had a lot of interactions online, phone calls made to us due to the voters seeing the post and interacting with it online. One thing to note was that if a post was made with a picture, it always seemed to do the best. So if you do go to do this for your county, somehow sticking some kind of picture on there, it just seems to make it a little flashier, and people would interact with it better. I feel like this project was a complete success, and I would definitely recommend it to all counties that they investigate starting some form of social media to help keep their community informed of what is going on around them. We received numerous compliments from voters around the county that they appreciated all the information that was put out there for them. Also, something else that helped me was that a lot of my fellow county employees at the time, they would share those posts also. And that really helped spread the word. They knew that I was trying to do this project. So getting people involved that were in your area also to help you spread this word of what was going on, it helped a lot. But yeah, definitely the more transparent a county is, the more trust there is in the election process. And that's definitely something that we could use across the nation right now, honestly. So the principles and tools I had used, with the knowledge I gained from my time in CEATS, I was able to answer voters' questions more effortlessly and help instill more faith in our election processes. I'm hopeful that I did inspire more people to get involved with elections and help serve the community. From a lot of the comments, it seemed to be that way. So that was really nice. I know a lot of people I graduated with, they would comment on things, and it was nice to see them get involved too. So all the information I learned from the program, I know will carry on throughout the rest of my career in elections. And I appreciate everyone's help and guidance with this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Higdon. The next presenter we have is Ms. Sherry Lentz, and she is from Bartholomew County. She is the voter registration and elections supervisor. She'll be presenting her final project on election morning video for Bartholomew County poll workers. It is all yours.
Okay, good morning. Are you able to see me?
No, we cannot, Sherry.
Okay. All right, there we go. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be with you this morning. I first want to start by thanking Secretary Lawson for the opportunity to participate in this program. And it's been such a pleasure to get to know all my classmates and to work with the VSTOP team. So it has certainly been a privilege. I just appreciate that so much. My capstone project addresses a problem that has been a consistent problem in Bartholomew County throughout the election years. And perhaps it's a problem in other counties as well. Yeah, thank you. I would like to just first give a little bit of information on the background of why I chose this topic for my project. Ever since we became a vote center county in 2015, our election office has taken a very hands-on approach to setting up the vote centers and the day prior to the election to help the poll workers out so that they don't feel overwhelmed when they come in on election morning. So my clerk, Jay Phelps, and I each have a team, and we go out and set up the locations the day prior to the election and make sure that all the supplies are there and that our poll workers are ready to go on the morning of the election. Well, approximately 1 week prior to the election, we conduct poll worker training, and we do that in small groups so that we can make sure that our poll workers are receiving the information and understanding what we are presenting and what is expected of them. Prior to this time, in 2015, we would have our poll worker training in large groups, and we decided that it was a good idea to try smaller groups, and that has worked out very well for us. However, if you fast forward to 5 a.m. on election morning, we start to get phone calls, and we have our poll workers asking questions in regard to, what should I do to sync up my poll pad, or I can't get the machine into voting enabled mode. So even though they had written instructions to take care of those processes, I think with the anxiety of the election day, and you add on that our poll workers, they don't live and breathe elections like election administrators do. And so it caused a lot of confusion. So in my goals, I wanted to provide some important additional information for our poll workers to remind them of these tasks. And it was my hope that I could alleviate some of the stress that our poll workers had and be able to open up that communication between our election office and our poll workers. Next slide, please. So in order to accomplish this goal, I decided to create a video for our poll workers to watch the morning of the election. And so I received first input from my coworkers and from our clerk, Jay Phelps, and asked them from their past experiences what kind of questions they had received from poll workers in the past. And I put their input along with all of the experience that I had from answering questions from poll workers, and compiled instructions for a video that I wanted to present to the poll workers on the morning of the election. And then I enlisted the help of a family friend to go ahead and record the footage of the video. So next slide. At our training, I explained to our poll workers that I would be sending them a video, and that they would be I would want them to watch the video between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. the morning of the election. So I sent the emails to the inspectors and communicated the video link with each vote center through the inspector. I contacted the inspectors to be sure that they had received the video and that it would play correctly on their device. And then I also asked the poll workers to do a survey, and the survey was to be viewed after they would watch the video. And so if you would allow me at this time, I would like to go ahead and show the video to you.
At this time, you will receive a notification on your WebEx screen to view multimedia content. This is the video that Ms. Lentz has included in her presentation. So just please mute your microphones if you haven't already, and we'll give you approximately 2 minutes to view the video.
Are you ready for me to proceed?
Yes, we should all be coming back now. Thank you for the video, Sherry. It was very, very well done.
Thank you. So if I could go to the next slide, please. Okay. In conclusion, I'm happy to report that our phone calls did greatly decrease, as Brandon Clifton had mentioned, with the unprecedented challenges that we faced last year because of COVID. It was certainly nice to have less confusion among our poll workers, and we did receive positive feedback from the poll workers after viewing the video. Next slide, please. This is just an example of the survey that I asked the poll workers to complete. I put it on bright yellow paper so they wouldn't miss it. And it was just ask a few questions there and ask them to rate the effectiveness of the video. Next slide. And this is the result from the survey. I asked the poll workers to gauge basically in 3 areas between 0 and 5, the effectiveness and the length of the video, the informative content, and if the video was a good reminder of the important task that was expected of them for the day. And I'm happy to report that in the length of the video, 4.75% satisfaction rate there in that area. And informative content, they rated the video as a 4.63% out of 5. And I was hoping that the video would just be a good checklist for them, for the poll workers for the morning. And then lastly, I am in asking if it was a good reminder, and they rated that as 4.80% satisfaction. So overall, I was pleased with the results. And as far as the principles that I applied from the class, I really believe that the CEATS class helped me to realize how very important communication is to the election process. We can do everything absolutely correct, but if we fail to communicate with our poll workers, then we will not be successful. And it's very important that elections are done methodically and very carefully. And so we just want to be able to ensure that confidence in our voters in the election process. So I believe that communicating well with our poll workers is very important, as our voters will have that interaction with the poll workers when they vote in person on election day. Last but not least, I'd like to thank once again Secretary Lawson and her wonderful staff for this opportunity. I want to thank Dr. Jay Baga and Dr. Brian Byers and the entire VSTOP team for their wonderful instruction. And also I want to thank my friend Ryan Furr for helping me in putting a video together for the poll workers to view. And our clerk, Jay Phelps, is very supportive every day and every election, and just appreciate him so much in his efforts as clerk. And then last but not least, our entire Bartholomew County election staff has been very supportive to me. I appreciate that so very much. So once again, thank you for this opportunity.
Ms. Lentz. Next, we will have Ms. Tara Peg from Wayne County. She is the voter registration supervisor, and she'll be presenting her project on voter registration from WIC and DFR. It is all yours, Ms. Peg.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, Tara.
I'm from Wayne County, Indiana. This was a tough project for me because I had my heart set on doing a different topic. So I had to pick, I couldn't do the topic I originally planned. So I had to pick another topic, and I was having a hard time coming up with the topic. So then Joel and Reagan talked to me, and Reagan gave me this idea to do the registrations from WIC and DFR. And talking among all 3 of us, we realized that all 3 of our counties have a problem with these agencies, with receiving registrations from these agencies. And the problem Wayne County has is that we receive these registrations and they're missing ID information, the voters' signatures, or incorrect addresses. And they come in with phone numbers and emails that do not work. So we have a hard time reaching out to the voter to get the correct information. And also the voters sometimes come in on election day and they think they're registered and they're not, because we're missing this information. So we want to try to get better communication with these agencies. So, and I don't know, you may not know what WIC is. WIC is a nutritious agency that helps pregnant women with young children and infants to eat healthier and better. The program is ran by the Indiana State Health Department. Our agency is another agency that helps families to eat better and nutritious. They are also responsible for establishing eligibility for Medicaid. My project goals are to help get better communication with these agencies and maybe see if we could get a hopper like what we have in the BMV in SVRS, where we're connected with the BMV and it comes to our office with a hopper. Or could we see about getting a kiosk in the agencies that could help receive these registrations into that hopper, into the SVRS, and help maybe get the correct information from the voters. My action plan is was to talk to Tyler from Civics about achieving the hopper in SVRS, and also I wanted to talk to the election division to see if this is possible too. My methods, I achieved talking to Tyler from Civics. He said that it is technically possible to get the hopper in SVRS, but there may be a reason why state doesn't want to do this to connect with the agencies. Due to unforeseeable events, I was unable to get in touch with the election division to touch up on this problem. My conclusion is maybe the IVRA board could take this and work with the election division and the civics and see if we could get better communication with actually getting a phone number where we could talk to a human being at these agencies instead of a recording. Or if we could see about getting the hopper that would help us receive these registrations like we do from the BMV. Because we're seeing that Lake County has problems, Johnson County and Wayne County. So I'm sure there's other counties out there in the 92 counties that could have the same problem as us 3 counties. So it would really help us if we could work something out with these agencies. My CEATS and principles and tools would be that I learned, it helped me reach out and meet people from all the counties that was in my CEATS class and helped me learn how to solve problems with them and how they work and do situations in their counties. It also helped me learn the laws of the equipment better and solving the voter registration problems. And it also opened my eyes up to safety, security, cybersecurity to help protect the voters. So I would like to thank everybody for all the help they gave me and thank the Secretary of State and VSTOP for this class.
Thank you, Ms. Peg. Our next presenter is Mr. Joel Rodriguez. He is from Lake County and he is the voter registration administrator. He'll be presenting his final project on online video training for election workers. The floor is yours, Joel.
Thank you. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the Secretary of State for this, for the wonderful scholarship for us to be as students with the CEATS program, with VSTOP, and I do want to thank everyone as well, the participants, for their great presentation. My title is Online Video Training for Election Day Workers. Introduction. Next slide. One more. Thank you. Digitally based video training for election day poll workers was created as a mechanism to provide a higher quality and more efficient training program for election day workers. As election administrators find themselves with greater limitations of time and resources by always seeking to improve the manner in which they process elections. They processed in 2020 what may have been the elections with the highest turnout, and they did it during a global pandemic. The global pandemic brought limitations to the number of people who could gather in one place and left many veteran workers unable to make the commitment. The Election Day workforce participants, not only in Election Day precincts, but also with early absentee voting, travel board voting, and additional office staff needed to maintain the pace to process an increased volume of mail-in ballots. The pandemic introduced unprecedented difficulties in the ability to recruit and properly train Election Day poll workers. This turned the desire to create a new program into a necessity in order to safely process the election. The digital training support the workers by allowing them flexibility in learning. The problem description. After a 2007 release of the groundbreaking success practice for poll worker recruitment, training, and retention by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, election officials across the country began to adopt new methods in recruiting, training, and retaining election workers. This became especially challenging in today's fast-paced world as election administrators face greater limitations of time and resources. Although social media platforms such as Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter are currently being used by counties across the nation, Lake County, Indiana is yet to utilize these valuable and economically efficient resources to provide training. As the number of once relied upon veteran poll workers decreases for various reasons, the need to recruit new poll workers as well as provide them with the proper training increases. This becomes especially challenging in today's fast-paced world. As you can see, the pictures below, that's the 2019 training in just one location. We actually have 3 locations throughout Lake County. So I think we're the second, if not third or second largest in the county as far as poll workers. The goals of providing a new and more efficient learning platform for poll workers was achieved through this process and will likely be used in future elections regardless of the existence of global pandemic. So not only was this part of my CEATS program, but it actually became embedded into our future elections. Next slide. My action plan. Number 1 was to obtain feedback from from previous poll workers on their training experience. Number 2 was to work with director, the assistant director, as well as my administrators to gather necessary elements to each video for training purposes. 3, create script, design elements, and production elements for each video. Number 4, to work with IT and data department and certain security tools, protocols, which was met. 5, produce training videos. Number 6, public presentation to Lake County Board of Elections and Registration during a formal public meeting. Of course, you know, in our county, we do have to present it and have that approved in order for it to be part of our election processes. 7, upload videos to the website and social media sites. 8, advertise by adding links to printed training manuals and checklists, as well as to provide websites and social media sites. 9, provide links and information regarding training videos to all poll workers. 10, complete post-election surveys with poll workers to evaluate the success of the program. And of course, 11, to complete staff evaluation of the program focusing on methods of improvement. Methodology. For creating a training program which allowed poll workers to receive a statutory required training in the safe and remote manner involved creating a series of short videos which were uploaded to a particular viewing platform. In this case, we did use YouTube as our platform. The short videos were designed to approximately 6 minutes in length and allowing viewing in individual segments, as well as comprehensive training program which linked all the videos together through a digital editing process. The work began with selecting topics for the segments and writing scripts for each one. When the election process met the global pandemic, election administrators became crisis managers, quickly in adapting the needs of the workers, and portion of the election office became a temporary video studio while staff members wrote, produced, and act in the video. Video segments were selected with consideration of the Indiana Secretary of State's poll worker training publication, top 10 election day mistakes by poll workers, and also include topics such as poll worker setup, photo identification, credentials, provisional ballots. We've also included, just starting up elections as well as closing the election polls, making sure everything's neat. I think we've even added a video with regards to PPE supplies, thanks to the Secretary of State for that. So we even added a video how to use those processes as well. Problem solving. Preparing the poll workers for election did not come without challenges. One noted challenge was the ability for some workers to view the video due to lack of internet access. So to accommodate those who lacked the access or simply desired an in-person experience, the video was made available in the government complex auditorium in a manner to provide workers with the ability to view the video and to be socially distanced with a live question and answer period following the video. Additionally, new equipment was deployed to mitigate the risk of human error with the anticipation increase in voter turnout. A segment was created to provide training on a new equipment which allowed the poll workers the ability to view the training and other schedule and as frequently as needed, including remote access from the poll workers' poll locations. The timeline for the project was only slightly amended in response to the increased workflow of absentee ballot processing. So we did sort of pause a little bit because we noticed that our increase in absentee ballots were coming in. I think we broke a record in 2020 general election. Feedback and evaluation. The feedback from staff and election day workers was incredibly positive. Numerous positive comments were posted on response to the online videos. Additional videos were created after the primary election and before the general election in response to the initial feedback. Workers enjoyed the easy access to the videos. The most common criticism involved music playing in the background, which of course I'm a musician, so I played some of my music in the background, but I guess we had some issues with regards to that. But, and I wanna say this, and I really didn't know this, but a lot of our poll workers are seniors. So the ones with hearing aids, I did not know that if you play sort of whether it's mellow music or high-pitched music in the background, I guess the frequency sort of intermingles with their hearing aids, and that's one of the issues that we had in terms of lowering the music, if not removing the music completely. Continued evaluation will include staff and poll worker forums to provide feedback and allow the improvements to be made during less laborious times in the election office. In conclusion, the goal of providing a new and more efficient learning platform for poll workers was achieved through this process and will likely be used at future elections regardless of the existence of global pandemic. Just want to go over some of the references that kind of helped me personally in terms of developing these videos, as well as reaching out. Election worker successful practices by the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, published in 2016. The top 10 election day mistakes by poll workers. by the Indiana Secretary of State, which was, of course, published in 2008. CEATS principles, tools, and references. The U.S. Election Assistance Commission, titled Integrity of Elections in the United States. Of course, the Secretary of State's Election Administrator Portal was very helpful. The National Conference of State Legislators, titled Security Measures on Election Day. Information Technology Essential by Thomas Malone. You got to read this book. But it talks about how Indiana safeguard elections, which is the title. The U.S. Election Assistance Commission, which the title is Managing IT and Election Systems. And of course, the hard work that VSTOP has put in, a Verified Technical Oversight Program. Their website was very helpful in terms of really providing the information needed to getting these videos together. I think we've accomplished over 13, if not 14 videos. And again, these videos are segmented throughout the election day, talking about certain parts. Again, they're broke down into 6 minutes. And of course, we do have one that is over an hour long. So it depends on whichever one you want to look at. But these are some great videos, and I was really happy to have everyone participating in it from my office. Again, I want to thank you. I want to thank the Secretary of State. I want to thank VSTOP, Brian, as well as Professor Baga for this wonderful opportunity to be part of the CEATS program, and stay safe. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez. So now we are actually on time. So we will take a slightly longer break and we will reconvene by 10:10 a.m. So I will see you then. All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the remainder of our graduation event. I would now like to welcome Ms. Julie Rauch. She is from Tippecanoe County, and she's the clerk. She'll be presenting on safeguarding democracy, procuring the right election system for Tippecanoe County.
Well, good morning, everybody. Please nod if you can hear me. Okay. So we must do everything in our power to protect our democracy, and it begins by ensuring that everyone can vote safely, especially in light of COVID-19. It is necessary to protect the fundamental right to vote and not let anything imperil the foundation of our democracy. It's also necessary to protect the integrity of the entire process, which includes not only the effectiveness of the election equipment, but also the voters' perception of its reliability and secureness. So our problem here in Tippecanoe County is that our current machines are 20 years old, and that they're DREs, they're sold by Dominion. So you can imagine the phone calls we got after the November election. There's no contractual agreement. Many of the machines are broken down. They lack a voter verifiable paper auditable trail, which is a requirement by the year 2029. And because of e-poll book issues and calibration issues, media, well, this was bad media, maybe fake news, but they called it vote switching. So for a couple years, what was in the media was that our machines were switching votes. We have about 120,000 registered voters we need to satisfy. And so our purpose is that we are challenged to identify voting machines that are the best fit for our county, but also the importance that the public felt that they also played a part in what we were going to choose to replace our old machines. You go to the next slide. So the project goal is to purchase the best voting system available in Indiana that meets our standards and requirements. And the requirements and needs, they're often in conflict. They must be certified by the state. Our hope is that it increases voter confidence. Of course, they must abide also by the federal law, and they must adhere and support the county vote center plan. So our action plan, steps to a solution. Well, our action plan was to begin by identifying and itemizing our needs, inspect our voting machines available to us, include stakeholders, introduce methods of analysis, mainly using qualitative and quantitative tools, interpret the feedback we received on the questionnaires, product information, interviews and reviews, and then identify a solution. Researching the products and speaking to stakeholders and resource groups helped us create a matrix of needs. These were the needs that we highly thought were important for our county. I'm not going to, you can read them there, but ease of use, accessibility. A big concern for us, because we have limited space, was also how we can store them. But we also needed, again, it all came back to, we needed to make sure the public was satisfied with what we were going to get so that we can eliminate that erosion of the confidence that's occurred in Tippecanoe County. We also we're a large county, as I mentioned, 120,000 people voting. We needed to make sure that it could do it quickly as well. Next slide. So our potential solutions were easy to choose. They were all found on the Indiana State's website. And by the way, these pictures that are in this are Tippecanoe County. They're from our archives. And here's a picture of one of the old ways that people voted in the past. So we looked at ES&S, we looked at Unison, Microvote, Heart Verity, and Heart TouchWriter. Next slide. So it was very important in our action plan to include stakeholders. With bad press for many years about our election machines, a strong and critical presence of the League of Women Voters who really wanted to micromanage us, erosion of the confidence of the public, high interest in the security of our voting machines, and the impact it will make on our county, we believed it was necessary to include the public. But it was important to weigh responses of those with election experience higher than the general voting public. Visiting other counties to see their voting systems and interview them was also important. Our plan also included interviewing the vendors and researching their products. And of course, this class in itself, I got a lot of information from, and the vendors who came to the class to speak with us. Next slide. So this is just an example of, we decided to have the open house. This is how we're going to bring in the public. So we sent out a flyer. We held an open house and we contacted the media. We prepared a survey to be filled out for each voting system. And on a scale from 1 to 5, the attendings answered questions such as, how would you rate the functionality and ease of use? Or how would you rate the accessibility of the machine? Or how secure do you perceive the unit to be? And then we also asked for their best and worst comments, and then also their years served in elections. It was very important. We knew that I'll go in, approximately about 80 or 90 people attended. So it was a great turnout for the first open house that we had. Next slide. So when gathering the data, it was obvious we needed to weigh those with experience in elections at 150%. So when using that scale 1 to 5, if they happen to say that they worked a year or more with elections, we weighted it at 150%, where another would get just the 100%. So we gathered the data and we tabulated those raw results to come up with 2 top machines. However, we disqualified ES&S due to misconduct reported on the Indiana Secretary of State's website. It was important that we did not add any factor that we would erode the public's confidence in our election process any further. You can go on, next slide. So now we have COVID. We didn't get very far when COVID hit, which slightly changed our plan. We were only able to visit and interview 2 counties. So we devised another survey for counties who either currently were using one of the 2 systems chosen or had used them in the past. Most counties were called and interviewed over the phone, and we paid special attention to counties with similar circumstances, such as having a public university and or a similar number of active voters. We interviewed about 13 counties and had informal discussions with several more. Questions asked were, are you a vote center county or vote precinct? What's the overall experience? How was the technical support from that vendor? Ease of transporting the equipment to the field? What problems have they had? Would they recommend this equipment to another county? And it was this online survey, there was a lot of questions that we asked them, on the phone. Then we came up with the idea to do an online survey with 20 questions that concerned the 2 top machines And then we developed a private viewing during COVID. This was a lot more difficult because of the constraints that we had to keep everybody safe and to ensure that safety and social distancing were used. So we invited county officials, members of the election board, election staff, and those with more experience, such as poll workers and employees. And they broke up in groups so that they could have that distancing, but they got to view in person again, these two machines. And these scores were also based on a 5-point scale, which were tabulated and compared. We did a much better job with our second survey than our first survey. The second one being online, it just was so much easier, so much clearer than the first one we had done on paper. Some of the questions that we asked on the online survey was, were the on-screen instructions, were they clear? Were they easy to follow? Was the ballot presented, was it clear and understandable? And did the system give us confidence that their vote was recorded correctly? We also asked if they felt confident in the security of this system and if the system was an easy transition for our voters and poll workers from our present election equipment. And tear down and storage of this equipment, we wanted to know if they felt that it was easy and convenient. That is just some of the questions that we had used. You can go to the next slide. So this is our first survey, the open house. So like I said, with that 1 to 5 point scale, we've tabulated those results, and we've got, Unison, ES&S tied, but ES&S, like I said, we could not afford to have any more negative in our county. So ES&S was pulled out. So it was between Unison and Microvote. Next slide. So after we did the online survey with people that were very, very familiar with the system, like I said, the county officials, the board, they just rated Microvote and Unison, and then we put those numbers together. So you can see that Microvote got the highest score and beat Unison out. Next slide. So the invitation group scores between Unison and Microvote showed that Microvote had the top score for all factors listed, but 2. And those 2 were the on-screen instructions were clear and easy to follow, and the ballot was presented in a clear and understandable manner. Those 2 questions got lower marks for Microvote than Unison, but Microvote did beat out all the other questions. And so we had that. This was really told us a lot, but go ahead and go to the next slide. We did run into a few roadblocks with this. We had very slow responses from surveys, and the surveys, some people didn't even fill them out, or they might have filled out for just one of the machines and not all of them. We also had some crazy responses too, like I like the color. I mean, things that just weren't really important. And that was one of the reasons why we felt that we had to hire those that really had experience with elections. COVID, again, preventing additional meetings and causing, attendance barriers. And it limited the interaction and in-person feedback as well. It was an ever-changing financial picture, and it turned out that in that time, we did get verification that the state was going to help us out with this purchase. So we knew that time crunch was on. We did have to really make sure public still felt like they took a part in this. And we kept in mind too the anticipating changing of laws and regulations. Next slide. So this is just an example of our work. This is a letter that we sent out for that second private showing that we had. We had to arrange, how are we going to keep COVID and keep people socially distanced, yet be able to touch those machines, to view those machines during this pandemic. And we absolutely were able to achieve that. So people did come in, we had them come in on half-hour increments, and then they were given time right there to fill out this online survey right on their phone. So we were guaranteed to get a much better results from people from that. Next slide. So our action plan, is completed. We see this as a bridge to our solution. Our next steps would be to review all the results, choose the product, negotiate the contract. And what was wonderful about this, now we have, the state is now involved, and they're going to help us basically procure an election system. And so a contract, we would be reviewing that, full legal review also with the contract, sign the contract, execute the contract, make the payment, which was made by the Secretary of State's office through a monies that they had received, and then procure the equipment. And I guess we also have to face removing the old equipment as well, because that can be costly. So identifying an answer. Well, after we chose microvote, it was announced that their Infinity voting system improved their screens and were certified by the state. So I had mentioned earlier that there were only two questions that people responded negatively towards. Well, those two problems, it turns out, even after we picked microvote, that those were fixed. And so we were really elated about that. There is still one issue we have, which concerns absentee mail-in ballots with the microvote. We do not think that microvote's mail-in ballots is the best option for our county. At this time, we plan to remain using AccuVote for mail-in ballots. We're a large county, and really think that what we have right now is a better solution for mail-in. But the microvote, it has the VPATs, and so it is now going. We don't have to worry. It's still a DRE, and this is the other thing. Our county was used to using a DRE. This is a DRE, so we know that it can function with a lot of people going through, and so we can keep the operations efficient. We will say that microvote received, I guess, about $1.5 million for this, and they are the longest continually operating voting system provider in our county. Next slide. So CEATS principles and tools, we used a lot. I am very appreciative of what I learned through CEATS, and going through the classes couldn't have come at a better time because of our need to procure election equipment. I had a much better understanding of essential components and terminology. Therefore, I was better prepared to make some very important decisions concerning our election machines, and also using that information to share with other stakeholders that were part of this process. Apologies to those of you that had to bear with all the questions that I asked during our classes, but it was a great opportunity for me to learn all I could so that we could make the best decision for our county. And the vendor displays was very, very helpful. Next slide. I would like to thank not only the Secretary of State, the office for their help in us procuring new election equipment, but also a huge, huge amount of thanks to my staff. This was tough to do all of this and go through COVID, and we're dealing with over 13,000 ballots, and the most we ever had before was 2,000. They worked tirelessly, hours, and yet we had to meet that deadline of October to get to choose what would be best. And we feel that we did. The public does feel like they were happy with what we have done. And so going forward, we're excited because I don't think we're going to have any more bad media going forward. So, and then thank you all for listening to this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Roush. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Sunday Shun. She is from Porter County, and she is the registration official. She will be presenting her project on contactless voting. The floor is yours.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. Make sure it was working. Okay, whenever you guys are you ready? Okay. So the problem that I focused on, we ended up calling it contactless voting. We started this project back in March and really got to fine tune it through the November election. With the CEATS classes all getting pushed back, it kind of worked out to our advantage. Next slide, sorry. Next slide, go ahead. So outline, sorry. So the problem that I focused on was the fear of voting. There was with the pandemic going on, it caused a lot of fear from the voters coming out to vote in person. Next slide. On election day, there's so much equipment that the voter comes in contact with, the poll books, the voting machines, the poll workers, other voters. The fear caused the voters to either just vote by mail or they not voting at all, especially with our primary. We were seriously getting calls every day with voters questioning what we were doing for their safety, whether they were going to come out and vote this year. It was really disheartening for our office, and I'm sure for your office as well. I'm sure you guys were getting the same phone calls that we were. The thought of someone being so fearful of getting sick that they don't want to come out to vote is just, it was beyond comprehension. We just couldn't figure, we knew we had to come up with a solution for this. Right. So our goal was to create an environment where the voter would feel safe enough to cast their vote, which of course, sounds simple enough, right? Okay, next slide. So we needed a solution to lessen, of course, the voter's fear and make them feel safe enough to come out and vote. And of course, increasing the voter turnout is always a goal that's essential to all of our offices. Next. And of course, that always starts with testing and trial and error. So that's kind of where we got to work. Next slide. So I started out by testing items that we could use to sign the poll book or make marks on our e-poll book. We use ES&S, the e-poll books, they're poll pads. And I wanted something that could either be tossed out easily or cleaned easily or sanitized. I knew that the styluses on machines would not hold up that rubber.
Liz, did we lose Sunday?
I think so. Let's see what the problem is.
Okay.
I just sent her a text, so we'll see what she says. Sunday, are you back? Okay, at this point, we will go on with our next presenter. It is Miss Beth Scheller. She is from Hamilton County and she is the elections administrator. She'll present her final project on poll worker instruction. I don't think we can hear you, Beth.
Yeah, she's unmuted now. We should be able to hear her. Liz or Mani, could you do some testing with Beth to see why the audio isn't working for her?
Yes, Beth, if you look at the bottom of your WebEx screen, you should see a little prompt that says mute, and there's a drop-down arrow. Can you check your audio settings and make sure that you are connected?
Still no sound?
We've got you.
Oh, okay. All right. So my project was poll worker instruction. Particularly, my goal was to do a video that the poll workers could see as they entered poll worker training in the primary of 2020. And also to have a separate checklist for the poll workers. We had a checklist before, and you all have to understand that I'm following in somebody's footsteps who knows all about elections, following Kathy and her job, and she's our clerk now, which is very helpful. But her poll worker training was, or manuals were set up, you know, to where they didn't need very much improvement or anything. But the only thing that I saw is we got a lot of calls from poll workers on election day and the night before on setup and things like that. And although the checklist was in the manual, they weren't searching the manual to find that checklist. And so I wanted a separate checklist. So that was one of the goals as well. So most of the questions were about poll site setup or breakdown. And then of course on election day, you always have your regular questions about voting procedures and things like that, which of course we all get the questions in our election offices, and it takes away from other things that we can and need to deal with. So the goals of my project, like I said, were to do an online video. And after discussing it with Dr. Byers and Dr. Baga, when I did the video, they wanted to make sure that I got feedback on that. So I was going to do the video and then show it at poll worker training, which we have quite a few poll worker trainings because we have a lot of poll workers here in Hamilton County, and show that, and then still have time for question and answer and to explain a few things. That was the goal. And then I did a simple checklist for the poll workers. I did one for what to do before Monday night. I did a checklist for Monday night, a checklist for election morning, during the day, and then to close down. So they were all in the same little booklet, but it was actually a checklist where they actually checked off as they went down the line and did the procedures that they were supposed to follow. That definitely worked out a lot better. I felt like the poll workers, we didn't get as many questions about that. So when I went to implement the video, it was about the time, like other people have said, that COVID started. And my video turned into a little bit of a different project, which I'll explain in a minute. But I did do the video, and after listening to Joel's presentation, if I did this in hindsight, I would do it like he did and do it in different segments, because when I did my video, it was for the primary and it was for a specific primary. And so I wasn't able to use my video in the fall because there was a lot of things in the video that didn't apply in the fall or that had changed or were different. So I think it would be better to do smaller segments like that, as well as the poll workers can go back if they have a question about a certain area, like setup, or maybe when the voters are in the polling place, they could go back to that same area and look at that. So I created the checklist, I updated our manual, and I did the video. So the video, like I said, was supposed to be shown on our election poll worker training. So since we didn't have election poll worker training in person, the video ended up being our full training. So they were sent. What we did was I worked with our IT department, and you can see, if you'll go to the next slide, you can see the method. The plan was to make the video and, like I say, show it in poll worker training, and then the poll workers were going to fill out some type of a form saying, yes, we liked this part, we didn't like this part, and evaluate it. And then we were going to give them the manual and the checklist, and then ask questions after that at the poll worker training. But the deviations from that were, since COVID was there, all of this was put online. So we would direct the inspectors to a certain area, and the inspectors would go to that place online. They would watch the video, they would download their checklist, they would download their manual, and then they would simply have to call or email if they had the questions. The poll workers then would complete a form online to prove that now I say prove, we had no way of knowing that they did the training, but they did fill out a form saying that, yes, I did complete the training, because we do pay them for the training, as well as inspectors are required to have the training. We had a separate training for clerks and a separate training for judges. So that actually worked out well, them completing the form saying that, yes, we have done the training. And I did get really good response. I think that had a lot to do with what we were going through at the time with the COVID pandemic, seeing that people didn't want to come in and people wanted to do the online training. So it couldn't have been a better time for that to happen for me, because I would have had to do it anyway. So it just kind of worked out that that was my project. So if you go to the next slide, the results, like I said, it worked out with the pandemic, and the project came at a perfect time. Although it didn't get implemented just like I wanted it to, and there was no, I had a lot of feedback from it, but I didn't actually have forms to go through and say, oh, they said I could do this or that better, but I had a lot of emails and a lot of feedback verbally about the video and the checklist. We definitely had fewer calls as far as setup and breakdown, and we definitely had fewer poll workers who didn't get their machine started right, or something like that, because I think it helped them just to go back to the checklist, as well as I was able to say, where's your checklist? Where is that? Pull that out, and then they could follow that. So as far as what I learned in CEATS, if you can go to the next slide, I enjoyed CEATS. For starters, when we first started CEATS and we learned the history of elections, and I read parts of some of the books, and I really enjoyed that, because I enjoy history anyways. There's a lot of those things I didn't know. And then help with seeing the poll pad and the voting machine vendors, and just the whole timing of CEATS being able to implement what we needed to in our offices. It was just awesome. The instruction was great, and I frequently contacted people in the CEATS program, either my fellow participants or Dr. Byers or Dr. Baga, or Monty was a real help to me with a lot of things as well. I particularly enjoyed the risk limiting audits that I got to participate in. And those help. I think we could do one here in Hamilton County after participating in those. And it really helps you to do that hands-on, which I would have never got to do that if it hadn't been for the CEATS program. So thank you again to Secretary of State Connie Lawson for providing this for us, for my clerk, Kathy, for letting me do it, and her husband, Perry, actually is the one who filmed our videos here in Hamilton County. He actually works with radio and TV, so that worked out well. And then to our IT department, where they helped us a lot in putting online the video, as well as being able to direct people to it, and then to have the form where the poll workers could complete it if they had completed the instruction. Like I said, I would probably do it in a little bit different way. I would do it in segments so that maybe for a fall election, you could use parts of what you did for the primary election. I know things change constantly anyway, so I think the videos are going to have to be updated almost every election, but it was a great asset, I think, and I'd like to continue to do it as we go along. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Scheller. My name is Molly Owens, and I'm the project specialist with the VSTOP team. I am pleased to be introducing the speakers for the remainder of the ceremony. As a quick reminder, we will be opening the floor to everyone in the end to congratulate our graduates, so please stick around for that. At this time, I am pleased to reintroduce Ms. Sunday Shun, Porter County voter registration official, to present her final project on contactless voting. Are you there, Sunday? Can you hear us?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay,
Go
there
ahead.
it goes. All right, perfect. Wasn't sure where the internet went out, so I'll just start at the beginning of this slide. That sound okay? Or you can tell me where you guys could.
Yeah. Do you want to, I think it was at that table, Monty. There you go. I think this is it.
All right, well, all right, I'll start there. Perfect. So I started out by testing items that I could use to either make marks on the poll book. We use ES&S's poll pads. I wanted something that could either be tossed easily or sanitized easily. I knew that our styluses with the rubber on the ends would not hold up to sanitizing over and over again under those circumstances of constant use with the turnout that I was hoping that we were going to get. I started out with removable pencil erasers on them, like you get in elementary school. Those did not work at all. They would not make a mark on the e-poll book. The next thing that I used was saran wrap, which it worked, but it was kind of a pain to get off of the stylus each time. It would get wrapped up. It was just really very time consuming and irritating. I tried sandwich bags after that, but that was, again, a bit pricey. Once you start adding up how many sandwich bags you're going to have to take off of each at the time for the styluses. And then we came across Q-tips, which was a great idea. They're cost effective, easily tossed. We thought, hey, that'll work out great. Sorry. They could, and they worked sort of. The problem with the Q-tips was it wasn't consistent. It would make marks on the poll pads sometimes. So of course those were out. When I do my testing and my work in here, I don't know if anybody visited Porter County, but I use my entire office. So I'm usually either on my floor, spread out. I have a side desk that I do everything on where the girls can hear everything. And I talk to myself a lot. So during one of my little staff meetings, they heard me talking about using the wax sheets next and just kind of getting frustrated because it wasn't, working out how I wanted it to. So next slide. When one of the ladies in my office, the brilliant Shannon McGuire here, interrupted my staff meeting, she suggested the blue quick sheets that we use here at the Family Express gas stations. That's a local gas station chain up here. They use them on their pumps, their doors, any surface that you would touch inside their buildings. So I called my mom, who lives very close to one of the Family Expresses, and she borrowed a few of the sheets for me and ran them down to my office. They worked amazing. You could wrap them around your finger and use them on the pull pad. It caused no problems with visibility on the machines. The best part was that they could be easily tossed. They could be wrapped around the pens to sign the secrecy envelopes. They were easily disposable and even recyclable. So that worked out even better. Luckily enough, Clerk Bailey, who's here with me today, Kate was coming over right after that and got to see how well they worked. Next, we just had to test them on our voting machines. We wanted something that we could use on the poll pads and the voting machines. We have ES&S's DS200s and the Express Votes. So I wanted something that we could use on our Express Votes as well as our poll pads. We tested them on the Express Votes next. We wanted something, again, easily accessible to our voters and was consistent, made accurate selections, and didn't cause any visibility problems. So again, by wrapping that blue sheet around your finger, it didn't cause any issues for the voter to see what selections they were making. It made accurate selections each time. Every time you pressed on that machine, it made your selection for you. We didn't have any problems with accuracy or consistency on the machines. It was very exciting. We finally found something that was going to work. We found something that we were hoping would help ease the fear of the voters and maybe get them to come out in person. All right, next slide. The problem that we did find is we're on a bit of a time crunch. I don't think that's the same slide. There you go. That's okay. You're good. We're on a bit of a time crunch. Go ahead and go next slide. I already went. We're less than 2 months from the election, 2 weeks from early voting. So the timeline was shortening as we speak, but luckily, as I mentioned my mother before, she knows everybody in Porter County. It's a little strange. So she was able to get me in touch with Gus Olympidis, who actually owns the Family Express gas stations. And lucky for us, he is actually very passionate about the election process as well. He dropped everything. He loved everything that we had to say about it. He dropped everything, came over here, brought some of the blue quick sheets. He brought us a dispenser. He even helped us try and figure out where to put it on the machines. Okay, go ahead and next slide. But his big thought was, why stop there? He even offered to get us enough of the dispensers and quick sheets so that we could put them on the doors to the polling locations as he does at his gas stations. This was very exciting because not just would the voters not have to touch voting machines or poll pads, they would not even have to touch a door handle to come in to vote. So from the entire process, they would not have to touch anything that another voter or a poll worker would touch. The only thing that was a little nerve-wracking about this was that's about 500 dispensers and 500 packages of quick sheets plus, so you have the extra. So we were a little bit nervous about getting all of those together on our machines to the polling locations in time for Election Day. Okay, next slide. Luckily, Gus, like I said, Gus uses those on his outer doors as well. So he was actually able to help us figure out a solution on how we were going to attach them to the doors, as you can see in the pictures. We used 3M tape. We started trying different types of 3M tape because I'm sure we knew the polling locations weren't going to let us attach them permanently to their doors. So we ended up using the 3M Velcro strips. We ended up using the heavy duty ones for the outer doors that could still be removable from the glass or wood or whatever type of doors that the polling locations were going to use. And we ended up using our Express Votes, and it's kind of hard to see in the picture, but in the top of the lid, our lids closed down on our machines. We use kiosks. So we needed something that could also be removed, but something that could handle the voter constantly pulling down on the blue quick sheets to pull them off of there. So we ended up, again, using the heavy duty Velcro 3M strips to attach them to the top lid of the kiosk, so the voters could easily see on there that the blue quick sheets were there for their use, as well as making sure that they were removable so the poll workers were able to close down the machines on election night. You could still yank down on it without it falling down on the machine. So it was nice. It seemed like everything was coming together. You can kind of see, I don't know if you guys can see, but in the pictures, how it's wrapped around the voter's finger as they're pressing on the poll pad and on the machines. Okay, next slide. The last thing that we needed to work out was the scanning of the voter ID. We didn't want the poll workers to have to touch the voter's ID to be able to scan it on our poll book. But the voter ID does of course need to be checked to make sure that it is that voter that's voting on election day, as well as early voting. Honestly, that part of it ended up being super easy and really simple. I set up our first early voting site for testing and for training, and started going through a typical voting day as we would. And we have the privacy shields, thanks to the Secretary of State's office. Thank you. It was right there in front of me. So I actually held my license on the other side of the privacy shield and could scan it through the privacy shield. So that worked out really well. So what we did is we ended up having the voter, they showed their voter ID so that you could see their picture, and then had them flip it around and hold it up against the privacy shield so that the poll worker could scan it through the privacy shield. So from the time the voter stepped up to the door, they did not have to have any direct contact with our poll worker or any surface that another voter had touched. We placed the quick sheets near any surface that they would have any contact with. We pasted them next to the glue sticks to seal the secrecy envelopes for early voting. The pens that they would use to sign the secrecy envelopes. Anything, like I said, that they would have to touch, we made sure that there was a blue sheet. I had one of the girls from the office come down and play voter, so we could actually go through the process and make sure that it did work. And it was honestly, it was spectacular. It worked out so well. Next slide. Now, how it's the turnout. Now, even though our election day numbers were relatively on the lower side, our early voting in-person numbers were incredible. We had a record number of early voting in-person numbers for our November election. I did ask some people as they were coming out some exit polling at our Valpo location, where our office is located. And a lot of voters said that they were really happy with the setup that we had, and they were happy with the blue quick sheets, so that they were able to not have to have contact. It made them feel a little bit safer. It said that they were comfortable to be there with 2020 being the way that it was. I guess comfortable is the best that I think we could probably ask for. Next slide. The only thing that I think that I wish would have worked out a little bit better is we did push the contactless voting through the media, through our social media. Our clerks has a social media set up for us, and she's got a lady in her office that does this amazing social media for us. We also tried to push it out through the newspapers and local stations. We even set sneak peek invites out to them, but much to our avail. Unfortunately, the newspapers didn't give it a whole lot of attention. With all the election stories out there going on, with all the COVID stories, they just weren't giving it the time of day that I really wish they would have. So I wish I don't know, got to figure out how to push that a little bit harder. Maybe try different avenues, some paid advertising or something, to try to get that out to the voters in the future. Okay, next slide. I really believe that this is going to be a system that we'll probably have to utilize for the elections to come. I don't think this is the last we're going to have to hear about pandemics or safe voting. This is going to be now a fundamental feature of elections with the PPE and this no contact. And although other counties don't utilize the same equipment that we use for elections, the quick sheets can be used for paper ballot counties. We use the quick sheets to wrap around the pens for secrecy envelopes. You could use them to mark your ballots. We use the quick sheets as well on our DRE machines for the express votes. So I would love to either get access or encourage the other counties to try them on your machines and see if they work, and let me know. I love data, so let me know if it worked or not. Anything that we can do to subdue the fear and get more people out to vote. to your polling location is, of course, everybody's goal. A solution needs to be pursued to diminish the voter's fear, to get them to feel comfortable to come out and vote. Next slide. Next slide, skip that one. Okay. I just want to thank everyone who's able to help me with the process. Clerk Bailey, who allowed me to take this on in a crazy year. She's always there for us. She comes over, helps whenever we need it. She's absolutely amazing. The ladies in the office, that brilliant Shannon McGuire lady you guys got to see, as well as Jeannie, Sharon, Becky, everybody in here has helped me out a lot with everything, keep me calm in all this chaos. My mom and dad for all the support. Our maintenance department's amazing. They got us more privacy shields when we didn't have enough. They set up all our election equipment for us. Our highway department delivers everything. I want to thank Gus for getting us all those dispensers. The CEATS guys and my classmates. I'm sure I tested all of your guys' patience this year. And of course, my family for putting up with everything and putting up with all my crazy long hours away from them, trying to do classes and working this crazy election with the COVID going on. So, and thank you, anybody that I forgot. Sorry, because I'm thankful for all of you, and I appreciate being able to join in this class. I really enjoyed all the conversations that we've been able to have, and all of the information that we've learned and taken on. It's been very helpful and useful in this job. So thanks, guys. That's it.
Thank you.
Yep, that's our contact information. If you guys want to send me any of that data, if you tested on any of that equipment, and I can send you some blue sheets, let me know. I'll ship them over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. June. Next, I'd like to welcome Ms. Karen Wheeler, Monroe County Elections Supervisor, to present her final project on elections during a pandemic.
Hi, I ended up having to change my CEATS capstone topic because due to COVID, actually, there was just some things that were not going to work because of it. So why not just incorporate COVID into it? So my topic is elections during a pandemic. Hopefully it's going to be the only one, it's only going to be necessary for 2020. We don't ever want to go through another pandemic, but I am sure we are doing things that we will continue to do forever, but that's kind of another topic. So many election problems were unique because of the pandemic, and those problems ran through the entire election, from the mail ballots, the walk-in voters, protecting the staff. With problems, there's always the desired performance and actual performance. In this situation, it was very difficult to make those two performances match when everything not only has changed from the previous election, but it kept changing as the election progressed. Procedures, timelines, keeping staff numbers down due to social distancing, and adding new policies had to be considered daily to meet the desired end to the best of our ability. The impact of the election process meant rethinking every moment in a new light, thinking about every voter's ability to vote, whether they had contracted COVID-19 or not, and keeping the staff safe at every turn. Our project goals and how to achieve them were to, I think I need the next slide, were to give every voter the opportunity to vote by a mail ballot, in person at early voting, or a bipartisan traveling board. And it was to keep everyone healthy by using personal protective equipment, or soon we got to know that as PPE, keeping social distancing, and being aware of the staff's needs due to their age, health issues, and other concerns, and their family needs. We also needed to improve our efficiency and effectiveness with our goals by holding daily staff meetings, creating a new team to handle the mail ballots, communicating more closely with the IT team on changes or needed improvements, or getting new ideas from them. Our action plan was at the end of every day setting a new schedule for the following day's agenda according to the response of the current day and the need of the coming day. Also collecting and logging daily numbers of mailed ballots, voters, etc., and keeping open communication going. The methods to reach our goals were following the action plan along with communication. This was one of the most important tools that we used. Talking it out always gave us a solution. Looking back, I see that it was a successful election. Every voter who wanted to vote did. Most of the staff stayed healthy. Several in our office tested positive after the election. Sadly and soberly, an occurrence was that one early voting staff member died the day after Thanksgiving due to COVID. To our knowledge, she did not come in contact with it in regards to the election. And the CEATS principle, in the beginning of the CEATS class, it was stated that our success could come by learning from one another. Our highly open communications allowed us to do that. We did learn from one another during this extremely difficult election. Everyone had a voice, and every voice was heard. My personal reflection of this election is that there were inconceivable obstacles with improbable odds of success, but we had incredible achievement. And I would like to say blessings and best wishes to the Honorable Connie Lawson in her new venture of life. And I'm sure she's going to enjoy those grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler. We have reached the end of our graduate presentations. Thank you all so much for the great work. At this time, I would like to bring back Dr. Byers and Dr. Baga for some additional remarks.
Thank you, Molly. Excellent presentations, everyone. I want to compliment you on just the wonderful work you've done and the commitment. At this time, I would like everyone to unmute their microphones on their computer. And I'd like for us all to give everyone a big round of applause. That way we could hear everyone. Okay, so at this time, we are very pleased to present the participants with their certificates for the CEATS program. The certificates that we'll be awarding today are symbolize months of hard work and commitment, which involved reading, assessments, reading and assessments, written assignments, and this comprehensive capstone project, which you heard about today. In total, each participant in the CEATS program completed 170 hours of educational work in the form of lectures, discussions, hands-on research and workshops, as well as completing an independent capstone project. We really couldn't be prouder of all of you. As Dr. Baga and I are educators, one of the highlights of our professional lives is to see people be successful with an educational experience, and that's exactly what we see today. So we're very, very happy for you. I'm going to turn the floor over now to Dr. Baga.
Well, thank you, Brian. Before we go with the formal presentation of the certificates, I would like to take this opportunity to wish Secretary Lawson well in her retirement. It has been a pleasure, and we have really enjoyed the VSTOP team. We have enjoyed working with Secretary Lawson, and we appreciate her keen interest and her lasting contributions in ensuring that the elections in Indiana are safe, secure, and accessible. And she's been a very proactive and active participant in VSTOP's activities, and we are really happy for that. So Brandon, please convey our best wishes from the VSTOP team to Secretary Lawson. Thank you. We will now present the certificates which are signed by the Secretary of State, Connie Lawson, by the Ball State President, Jeffrey Merns, by the ID co-directors, Brad King and Angela Nussmeier, and by the two VSTOP co-directors, Jay Baga and Brian Byers. Now, of course, it would be great to have this presentation in person, so we could hand you these in person, but unfortunately due to COVID, we are going to be doing virtual presentations. But be assured that your certificates will be delivered to you in the next couple weeks. They'll be mailed to you. So please look for them. As your names are called, we will display your certificate on the screen. Please hold your applause until all the certificates have been presented. And at this point, I invite Brandon, Mr. Brandon Clifton, to confer the certificates. Brandon?
Yes, thank you. Can I get a nodding of heads if you can hear me okay? Thank you. And just a point of personal privilege. I've learned a lot today. I've learned a lot from each of you. You know, the ingenuity, the creativeness, you know, the blue sheets that we use all the time to, you know, get donuts, maybe at the grocery store, or use to pump gas. Using those as your PPE on stylus, I thought that's a great idea. I mean, we should have thought of that sooner. That's just so remarkable and such a perfect solution to a problem that we really saw ourselves working through. And throughout today's presentations, just pieces and nuggets of information that I'll be submitting to the successor on your behalf, and with reference to those that submitted this material. So it's just tremendous to watch. So without further delay, on behalf of Secretary Lawson, on behalf of the state of Indiana, it's with deep honor that I confer upon all of you the certification in election administration, technology, and security. And with our first certificate, again, it's with great pride and pleasure that I present Reagan Brooke Higdon with your certificate. Again, with pride and pleasure, present Sherry Lentz with your certificate. Also presenting today, Tara Pegg, your certificate. And also presenting just a tremendous presentation, Joel. Really enjoyed your comments and had some good notes here, presenting your certificate today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And a friend and I would consider a mentor and a great source of information, Julie Roush, clerk in Tippecanoe County, my home county.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I think one of the best names in election administration, Sunday Shun, presenting you with your certificate today. And just a couple more, presenting Beth Scheller with your certificate. And finally, Karen Wheeler, it's with pride and pleasure that on behalf of Secretary Lawson, have an opportunity to present your certificate today. And again, to all the participants, it's been a pleasure. My notes are robust, and I've learned more today than maybe any of my days this week. It's just been packed full. So it's good to sit down and to watch and to receive some great information. So thank you very much. Back to you.
Thank you, Brandon. So again, please unmute everybody, and on behalf of VSTOP and all others, and on behalf of the Secretary, join us for a round of applause. Thank you. Let me turn it over to Brian at this point. Brian?
Thank you, Brandon. And again, our heartfelt congratulations to everyone today. Well done. Well done. As we conclude today, we would like to do one more thing, and that is we want to introduce the third cohort for the CEATS program. And these individuals will be beginning next month, the program that you just completed. So at this time, Liz Beatrice, our CEATS graduate assistant, she'll be reading their names, their positions, and their counties for us. And as a preface to this, we wish to say that we are very delighted to have them in the CEATS program because we're very appreciative of the momentum that the program has had and continues to enjoy. And you are all now ambassadors for the program. So it's our hope that you will share your experiences with others around the state and encourage others to also participate in what you just completed. So I'll turn the floor over to Liz, who will be going through the names and the counties of those who are going to be starting next month with Cohort 3.
Thank you, Dr. Myers. We have a total of 12 incoming participants. Our first participant is Miss Jessica Whitehead. She is the Delaware County Clerk. We also have Beth Wisman. She is from Hamilton County and she works in the elections office. We also have Nancy Bryant. She is from Grant County and she is the clerk. We have Angela Cornett. She is from Clark County. She is the voter registration and clerk. We also have Jennifer Dawn Lewis. She is
better notify as soon as possible. They'll be having your name everywhere.
She is from Vigo County and she works in bookkeeping. We also have Elizabeth Stuyvesant. She is from Vigo County and she is the clerk. Also, we have Heather Marie Dowler. She is from Tipton County and she works in the elections division, along with Christine Crawford, who is also from Tipton County. Also, we have Lisa D. Meir. She is from Delaware County and she works in voter registration. We also have Enola Gallion from Clay County. She is the election clerk. We also have Gracie York from Vermilion County, also the clerk. And lastly, we have Tasha Manuel from Allen County, and he is on the election board.
Okay. Thank you all for joining the second Certificate in Election Administration, Technology and Security Capstone Project presentations and graduation ceremony. I would like to close with a few additional words of appreciation. We would like to thank the attendees who joined remotely in support of the graduates, as well as Secretary Lawson and Chief of Staff and Deputy Secretary of State, Brandon Clifton, who assisted with facilitating this virtual ceremony. I would also like to thank Liz Beatrice, our CEATS VSTOP graduate assistant. Liz works primarily with CEATS, the CEATS program, but also she works on the VRAPSA program. And she organized this event with the assistance of Monty Killaroo, the VSTOP IT specialist. So thank you both very much for your time and effort, which made this event possible. At this time, we will close and end the WebEx event. Please enjoy the rest of your day and have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are opening the floor to everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
Please, just a minute.
You didn't come through. Can't hear you.
Grant County.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I will add this. We are ending the conference now.
What did you say?
We are ending the conference, Molly.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I'll drop off.